from fans on Reddit being absolutely pissed, to many of them calling out the developers for ruining the game. Here's how gamers are reacting to Overwatch 2's PvE mode being cut. For starters, most of the Overwatch fans on Reddit were pissed. Like, a lot of them were completely done with Blizzard's excuses and were straight up ready to quit the game. One Reddit user even mentioned that the game feels dead to them at this point. And a big reason why is because the developers kept the players in the dark about the whole incident. I mean, they must have known for months that the PvE mode was going to get drastically cut down. Yet, they continued to keep this huge information a secret from the fan base. Probably because the team knew that it'd massively affect the hype surrounding Overwatch 2's release. It was already bad enough that fans had to wait to play the PvE stuff, but if they announced that the mode itself was going to be reduced to the bare essentials, I bet the game would be dead on arrival. And it seems many people on Reddit agree. Another user mentioned that they find the whole thing exhausting, especially because Blizzard dropped this massive bit of news in a tiny little part of an interview, which kind of makes it seem like they were trying to just sweep it under the rug. It goes to show that the company isn't exactly taking accountability and is only just trying to run away from bad PR. Safe to say, players aren't happy with the way Blizzard and especially the Overwatch dev team have chosen to handle this situation. That said, some players do empathize with the developers too, because it's not easy to see years of your hard work scrapped for no reason. The thing is, the developers who were working on the PvE content aren't happy to cut the mode either. For them, it's probably just as big of a loss as it is to the players. They've been working on adding a bunch of new abilities, talent trees, and systems to the PvE mode, most of which won't ever get to see the light of day. That must suck. But why exactly are the developers cutting the mode down when they seemingly love it so much? Well, the official reasoning is that the mode just got too out of hand. As they continued to expand it, they realized that the workload was just too much for them to do. Like, they'd need to create literal hundreds of new abilities to facilitate the long talent trees they had in mind. Especially when you consider that these had to be added for every single character in the game. It was just too much. So instead of going down a path that they knew would only suck in even more time and energy from them, the developers just decided to pull the plug. For what it's worth, they definitely understand the impact this will have on the community. Especially since the PvE was the big feature everyone was waiting for when it comes to Overwatch 2. And get this, the whole shift to the sequel was kind of made to justify the PvE content being added. You see, when Overwatch 2 was first announced, fans were skeptical of the whole idea. I mean, why even call it a sequel when it's just a big game update? But Blizzard said that the reason why they needed to make this a whole new sequel was because of the PvE content. Apparently, it was going to be so high-tech that they needed to make adjustments to their engine. And well, the stuff they wanted to do just couldn't be added to Overwatch 1's game engine. So besides the new maps and heroes fans got for PvP on release, it was clear that the PvE content was going to be the big thing to keep fans hooked. Then it got delayed, and after months of silence, Blizzard finally just now mentioned that it's completely dead in the water. No wonder fans are upset. The only reason they even agreed to the sequel has now been taken away from them. It just feels like a slap in the face to the gamers who've spent countless hours supporting Overwatch and even sticking by the game when it delayed features. The fact that all of it just led to even more disappointment, well, that's just not sitting right with the fans. Many even called out Blizzard for having no new content to show for it. Even though they mentioned that PvE content is coming, just not in the same scope they promised. Overwatch devs were quick to mention how they haven't canceled PvE outright, but all the cool stuff that they announced for the mode back in BlizzCon 2019. Yeah, all of that is gone. Deal with it. But there's some new PvE content coming later this year, though surprise, surprise, Blizzard showcased none of it in their announcement. This has led to some fans worrying just what the state of this PvE content is really like. I mean, the first thing they'd want to do in this scenario is to calm fans and to showcase them just what they've been working on. So the only reason they're being so silent and shady about the whole thing would be if they've got nothing to show for it, right? To make matters worse, they highlighted a terrible roadmap, and you guessed it. It's filled with a bunch of recycled events and stuff that fans have already seen, like Summer Games. Aren't you excited to play that again for like, what, the 6th year in a row? Oh, you're not? Well, too bad. Here's a new battle pass that you can pay for to get skins that you could unlock for free in Overwatch 1. Now, a lot of these fan complaints might seem hyperbolic, but when you consider just how much of a downgrade the game is compared to its original counterpart, it quickly becomes apparent that the fans are justified in their anger. And don't even get me started on all the other theories people have about the PvE mode being cut. Some fans think that the mode being canned has nothing to do with the workload. After all, how did the team even decide to start a project like this without considering just how much work would be involved? And even if they did realize later on that, it was just too much. Why did it take them 4 entire years to come to this conclusion? Clearly something isn't adding up, or at least that's what some fans seem to think. So just what's the issue? Well, it looks like greedy executives over at Activision Blizzard that have gotten involved. They must have seen just how much money the Battle Pass was making for the game. After all, it earned Overwatch 2 a whopping $100 million in a single month. Can you imagine? So they were probably all like, why are we wasting our time funding this massive PvE mode when we can just cut everything down and sell it in the Battle Passes? And honestly, their idea is kinda genius, from a money-making perspective, that is. But if you look at things from the player's lens, it's completely terrible. You're taking something away which was promised to be exciting and fresh, and just repackaging it in the form of boring, rehashed missions that no one wants to do. And the worst part? They're likely going to be asking players to pay for these missions every time, since they'll be locked behind the Battle Pass. And that's not even getting to the saddest part behind this announcement. After all, that is that the PvE mode utterly crippled Overwatch 1. And with it now being cancelled, it was all for nothing in the end. If you're not familiar with the history of Overwatch 2's development, let me fill you in. Sometime around 2019, Blizzard decided they wanted to slow things down when it came to content releases in Overwatch 1. So, all those epic new heroes and maps that kept people excited, yeah, they became less and less frequent. But the devs promised that it'd all be worth it. Because all this extra time which was being taken away from the development of new heroes and maps was instead going to their epic and exciting new PvE mode. One that was going to have all the bells and whistles of some of the market's leading PvE games. And boy did the stuff they tease have fans excited. Many of them were even ready to forgive Blizzard for the absolute lack of content in Overwatch 1, as long as they got to test out this PvE mode, and if it lived up to the hype Blizzard themselves generated. The fact that none of this ended up being released, and in the end, it's gonna get canned, without fans so much as getting a playable demo, just goes to show that all that waiting they did for 4 years was for nothing. So Blizzard has not only ruined Overwatch 2, but they also retroactively ruined Overwatch 1. Sheesh. So from fans calling out the developers for ruining the game, to many folks on Reddit being absolutely pissed, that was how gamers are reacting to Overwatch 2's PvE mode being cut.